What is the cringiest way you've seen someone try to flirt? I saw freshmen try to flirt during my college's welcome week. Our freshman dorms are high-rises. Think 18 and 22 stories. Freshman guy to 3 freshman girls. Freshman guy, what floor are you all on? Girl 1, I am on 7 inches. Girl 2, 9. Girl 3, I am on 7 also. Freshman guy, looks like here we have 2 7s and a 9. Flicks his sunglasses down. It was the biggest train wreck I had seen in a long time. The girls just left. The poor guy was just looked confused. That is amazingly hilarious. Our dorm sponsored a day at Magic Mountain and I caught a ride with a few guys I didn't know all that well. Leaving the park that night, a car full of girls asked us to meet them at IHOP. Guy sitting in passenger's seat was attractive. We did so, and our driver, who was definitely not used to this kind of attention, decided to impress the ladies by doing backflips in the restaurant. The first time it was met with "Did he just do that?" giggles and claps. The second time it was "Okay, buddy, enough is enough." He did this a dozen times. The last few, when he was sweating and no one was paying him any attention, were so goddamn difficult to watch. This was the most cringe-worthy one in this thread. Oh my god. My friend and I met a couple girls at a bar and we exchanged numbers with tentative plans to hang out the next day. That night he got a text saying it was nice to meet us and to text them if we wanted to do anything tomorrow. His response went something like, "We don't know what's going on tomorrow, but if you're not doing anything, feel free to do us." Didn't get any response after that. He is the opposite of wingman. I have a co-worker who calls me Lady and Lady Stark because my nickname is Cat. He also texts me with tons of ellipsis at random hours of the night. "I loved seeing your beautiful smile today." I'll ask him to stop, and he'll be all sullen for a few days until he resumes his behavior. It's pretty cringy, especially as he's 20 years older than me. Be careful. With behavior like that, I can almost guarantee he's a Redditor. A Greek man was trying to impress me, and it sounded like he delivered this line often. "You see, I'm like Mel Gibson. I know what women want," with the cheesiest smile, followed by a "but I'm not as handsome, I think." Boy. Please tell me this happened in 2000 when that movie was still relevant. In high school, a kid I knew had a huge crush on a girl. He was convinced if she just knew he liked her, she would fall for him. So he pulls out his gum, which he freaking hands to me, marched up to her and started to show her magic tricks involving flipping a coin. Out of nowhere he then, how to put this, face tackled her. He did this on a field trip in front of the entire class. Kids make me feel uncool as a magician. A guy I know met his girlfriend at a party using the following line. They were talking and she said, "I'm thirsty. I'm going to grab a drink." Then he replied, "I'll be your drink." Then they made out. Whoa, I'll try this. A fellow rubbed my friend's stomach and said, "This is where I want my baby to grow." It didn't work on her. I've seen a guy crash the conversation of two people who seem to be enjoying talking to each other and derail the conversation with talk of extreme poverty he's seen around the world until the girl walked away. I've had to deal with this guy for too long, and a time I'm with a girl he proceeds to shove his way between us literally. My friend wrote a B and an R on the back of a $1 bill so it read boner. He handed it to the cute checkout girl and said, "I'm giving you $1, but you're giving me a boner." Actually worked and he got her number. Don't think he ever contacted her though. What a waste then. 5 years ago I was a freshman in university. Our completely gameless friend, who used to do the finger guns at girls, was asking for advice about how to flirt on Facebook messaging. A mutual friend says to my completely clueless friend, "Tease her about something she likes." The following conversation ensued. Topic gets onto Harry Potter. Her. "Yeah, they're great books, blah blah blah." Him. "Totally. Guess who you remind me of?" Her. "Who?" Him. "Neville Longbottom." Girl signs off. Room erupts in laughter. The look on his defeated face was heartbreaking, unbelievably hilarious. Neville Longbottom got hot in the end. It was a comment that takes 10 years to realize. When we were 16, a friend of mine always wore this big, long, brown leather coat. Awful looking. It was. There was this girl he liked and, lacking the necessary nerve to strike up a conversation with her, came up with a fantastic plan. So one day he comes in wearing his big leather jacket. It was a lovely early summer day, and the girl of his dreams is sitting with a crowd of her friends, watching the cooler guys play football. My friend walks up in front of the girl and her mates and does a loud, theatrical clearing of his throat. Ahem. All eyes are on him. I wonder what will happen next. My friend pulls open his coat, holding it open like some sort of park flasher, and safety pinned to the lining of the coat are a bunch of pieces of paper which read in heavy black marker, "You are lovely. Let's go out." My friend doesn't say anything. He just stands like that for what seems like an eternity, the confident smile on his face being replaced by a look of utter terror. The object of his affection says nothing as her face turns beetroot red, her friend sniggering. After a very long time, my buddy just runs away, mortified. The next day, the entire school knew about it and he never wore that brown leather coat again. There was this girl he liked and, lacking the necessary nerve to strike up a conversation with her, came up with a fantastic plan. Oh. When I lived in NYC, I met this guy we called Dancing Dave. There are several stories about this guy, but one that fits the topic is the night he ran across a bachelorette party. Dave would get drunk after 2 beers. We show up at this bar club on the Lower East Side and he immediately orders 2 beers and slams them. He then rips off his fleece to reveal a freshly washed white tee. Nice. Just as he turns around, he sees the group of girls in the party and starts to dance over. He gets in the middle, does some pointing moves, some booty drops, then kind of settles out dancing with one of the girls. My roommates and I are loving what we are watching. We see that they are talking and she is laughing. Thank God, because you either get weirded out by Dancing Dave or love him to death. As the song changes, he hears a familiar tune sang by the Black Eyed Peas and he just couldn't stop. He dropped to the floor and grabbed her ankles, one hand on either ankle kind of holding her there. He looks up and yells, "I got your ankles." She then laughs and frees herself from his creep lock and goes back to her friends. Dancing Dave comes over to us and says he thought everything was going great. We were like, WTF. Dancing, what did you do? I grabbed her ankles, he smirked. It was from that point forward I knew I would never grab a girl's ankles. The venue. My friend Dave was having a New Year's party at his place. The situation. Our friend TK brought a very platonic friend, Sarah, to the party. Another friend, Shane, got very drunk, needing assistance to stand levels of drunk. He's leaning over the back of a recliner talking to Sarah, holding his phone saying, "So I got one of these. I mean, I don't know if you do, but I think they can communicate with each other if we want them to." She let him down sorta easily. It was so awkward to watch. That's actually kinda cute and funny, unless he wasn't saying it in a witty manner. Once I saw a very small guy, dressed in an all blue tracksuit, walk up to a girl who was ordering a drink. She was bent over the bar, talking to the bartender. When he took his chance, he slapped the girl on her butt and stood there waiting for an answer with a grin on his face. The girl was not amused and left. I was sitting in the cafeteria at school minding my own business. A cute girl was sitting by herself in a nearby booth, also minding her own business. Suddenly, a known neckbutt comes up, sits down in her booth, holds up a cloth to her face, and asked, "Does this smell like chloroform to you?" She didn't really understand and just said, "What?" It was visibly, and understandably, creeped out. He didn't really know what to do, so he awkwardly sat there for a few seconds and then just left. It was physically painful to watch. Yeah, that never works in real life. Black. Gay dude asked my straight friend if he was Astrological sign, then completely made up a bunch of bulls about how those two signs were compatible when my straight friend said he was a completely different one. A man trying to hit on me said he could be the Hosea to my Gomer. For those not well versed in their Bible, Hosea was a prophet. Gomer was the W he married. She kept running away from him to take up prostitution again. I don't know why he thought that was a good idea. I initially read this as being the Hosea to your grammar and couldn't begin to guess how those two go together at all. Upon reading the rest, I realized it was actually much worse. I used to work drive-through cash register handing out the food at a fast food restaurant. One day, this creepy dude pulls up to the window and is straight ogling me as I take his cash. He had just $1 in change, so I handed it back to him. A few seconds later, I hand him his bag of food and tell him thanks. Have a good one, he smiles. I close the window. A few seconds later, he knocks on the window. Alright, maybe he wants ketchup or something. Nope. He hands me back the $1 bill. He says, "You deserve this for looking good, sweetheart." Creepy smile plastered on his face. He drives away. I felt like a stripper. You shouldn't feel like a stripper. You service that creepy man. You should feel like a prostitute. I bartend weddings at a resort and I was stuck next to the dance floor in a really small room a few weeks back. The bride and groom were precious, but the people who attended were wacky to say the least. One gentleman in particular could probably compete and win a Michael Scott look and act-alike contest. He was goofy, free-spirited, but did the awkward stuff like push people out of their chairs to dance or, very poorly, do the worm. Through the latter half of the night he was dancing with a younger woman. Despite having a ring on his finger while her not so much. He would lean in for a kiss and she would slowly pull away awkwardly. She pulled him out of the room a couple of times, but they kept returning to the dance floor for their awkward slow dance and missed kisses. As the night progressed he kept trying and more frequently. I never saw kiss, only extreme awkwardness. TL. DR. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Wayne Gretzky. Michael Gary Scott. Yeah, but when you miss 100% of the shots you do take, it's time to pass the puck. Once, this guy, I'm guessing around 180 pounds on a good day on a 5 minutes and 10 seconds frame with sticky hair and longest black winter coat. It was winter though. We were walking back to the residences after a bar crawl or something, and he was chatting with me the whole time. I just assumed he was being friendly, you know, to welcome the international student to your country. We came upon this small puddle on the side of the road. He then took off his long black coat and placed it on top of said puddle with the most overly odd gesture, in front of at least 8 other guys around, and insisted that I walk on top of his coat. I refused to, but he kept insisting because it is the gentlemanly thing to not let a lady's feet get wet from a puddle. It was so embarrassing. I was more embarrassed for him. The other guys were sniggering loudly. Note that there's plenty of perfectly fine space to walk on the road that wasn't wet or anything. He took my hand and guided me on top of it. Cringe. I got my shoes and feet wet because it was one of those small but deep puddles. I didn't tell him so, but thanked him. He took his coat off the puddle and it was soaking wet and dripping with rainwater and mud back to the halls. I think dry cleaning isn't cheaper for students as well. That crap be cray. This is the first to make me cringe. Ugh. Ah yes, middle school. I hung out with a couple of my friends and a new guy. He somehow got my number, told me my friend had nice tea, then asked me out. After I said no, he said PLZ and asked me out again. Ah, but he said PLZ. That usually works. Me the other day, I was drunk and trying to charm this girl at a bar. She says, "I bet you're the kind of guy who says this to all the girls." I reply with, "No, I'm actually quite a nice guy. I mean, I give loads of money to charity. I don't give any money to charity." I did this. Group of girlfriends and I were at this bar once having girls' night or some crap. We're complaining about classes, work, the whole spiel when this guy walks in. This guy is HRRNGH worthy, in the good way. He walks in, makes his way to a group of dudes and begins chatting and drinking with them. My friends and I are sitting in our corner table giggling and ogling him. "OMG, you should talk to him." "No, you should talk to him." Exchanges are made. I'm pretty buzzed at this point, so I'm like, frick it, I'll talk to him. My goal was to slide up in an open spot next to him. He and his friends were hanging out by the bar, elbow on the bar countertop with my head tilted on my hand, and give him a smooth lame pickup line. Because even if that fails, it'll seem cute and endearing if I try it. Right. So I walk up, get to an open spot, elbow on the countertop, head tilted in hand. Nope, I freaking missed my hand and slammed my head into the bar. I immediately got up. Dude looked freaked out and sauntered off like nothing happened. Just up and went back to my group of friends trying to act like that was what I meant to do. You're my spirit animal. My friends and I were on Skype coaching my friend through asking a girl out on a date. Of course we're all single, so this is just little more than lulz. Then, he simply says, "Guys, I fricked up. He sent us the most cringe-worthy screenshot of all time, with him asking her, does this mean we're dating now, on Facebook. Before the date, we just spent the rest of the night laughing our asses off at what transpired. What great friends we are. My ex and I were out bowling one time and I went to grab us beers. I come back to a guy going into detail about his extreme fish collection and how she should check out his fish. I feel like I know that dude. A friend of mine used to be kinned off a cokehead and he got huge into fish. He'd get all coked up and bro out about his fishes. It was hilarious. I have a touchy-feely friend that 9 times out of 10 is horrendous to watch flirt. So uncomfortable for the girl and often we would step in. The problem is that 1 time out of 10 the girl would actually seem to be into it, which would enforce his bad behavior. 10% response rate. Pretty good numbers there. When guys try putting down other guys, usually their friends, around women, not only is it cringy, you're being a dong to your friends. Was out with a couple of girlfriends this weekend. One guy proceeds to sit at our table. Within 5 minutes his friend joined him. Friend barely said a word. Guy 1 was quiet and mumbled and asked my girlfriends and I each at least 3 times what we did and then asked my friend if he could eat some of her food. They lingered for like half an hour at least. It was weird. Sounds like some newbie poor guys trying to get over their social anxiety or something. One time, this idiot tried to impress a girl on a date by reciting pi to 100 decimal places and bragging about his Pokemon. The thing is, it actually worked, though. I was at a party once and a random girl tells me that my shirt isn't working and makes me look gay, but she is willing to ignore it and dance with me. I didn't know if to be insulted or faltered. In the end I just told her frick you. My shirt is fabulous and left. She wanted to see abs. A friend of mine followed this girl around at a party I threw. At one point he was waiting outside the bathroom for her. It was creepy. In 6th, maybe 7th grade, I liked this girl so I texted her that I liked her and I'm not gonna ask you out, I just thought you should know. And she responded, that's very sweet of you, thanks for letting me know. In other words, she was really flattered. 10 minutes later, I sent a 1,000 word text explaining why we should go out, ending it in and that's how Matt gets crap done. This obliterated our friendship for the rest of that year. We're friends again now, but we never speak of that. I cringed 4 times just writing this. And that's how Matt gets crap done. The worst experience I ever encountered was at a Final Fantasy Symphony Orchestra concert in Atlanta. This guy approached my sister and I wearing a large square soft blazer and velcro shoes. It was the nerdiest thing I have ever witnessed. He proceeds to ask my sister what her favorite Final Fantasy song was. Then he uttered this gold, "You remind me of Eris. Can I be your cloud?" I walked away from that with an uncontrollable gut-wrenching laughter and left my sister with that guy. Whenever I see her at holidays I always bring it up. Was at a Final Fantasy Symphony Orchestra concert in Atlanta. It was the nerdiest thing I have ever witnessed. Well, when trying to seduce my crush, I decided the best way to get him to notice me was to quietly poke at his chest over and over again while laying next to him. It wasn't a strategy on my end, I didn't know why I was doing it, but I just couldn't stop. It worked. He kissed me, probably just to make it stop. Still dating. If things have progressed to the point where you're laying down next to each other, then your chance of success is going to be pretty high. I once kept running into this girl throughout the day. Towards the end of the night, I saw her at a Wawa and so I said, "Dang girl, your nickname must be Visa, 'cause you're everywhere I want to be." There was a store full of people to witness this. 2004 was a trying year for me. Now you know that you weren't cute enough to pull that off. At a previous job I overheard a guy hitting on one of my cubicle neighbors. It was his last day at the company so it seemed like his thought was now or never, man. Got her at least give it a shot. He comes over and awkwardly lets her know he has 2 tickets to an event and wants to know if she'd want to join him and grab dinner while loudly and repeatedly blasting nervous farts the entire time he's talking. She tried to let him down easily, and I stared blankly at my monitor and used all of my strength to keep quiet. I felt bad for the dude, and more power to him for trying, but it makes for a funny mental image now. while loudly and repeatedly blasting nervous farts. Whenever a guy tries to flirt with me by saying you look so exotic, where are you from, I die a little inside because I know he doesn't mean to say something so stupid. I was at a party with some good friends. There was this guy there that I think was only invited out of pity. Poor guy. Anyway, the party is going fine. People are in all the common rooms chatting and eating. The poor schmuck, we'll call him Bryant, comes up to me and asks if I've seen his phone. No, I say. He lost it, he says. Can I call it, he asks. Alright, no biggie. I ask for the number and call it. I walk with him to the other room, which was the darkest, most out of the way room in the house, and I hear it ringing. Bryant then proceeds to pull it out of his pocket and says, oh, I guess it was in my pocket the whole time. I begin to leave. He then, interrupting my stride, throws an arm around my shoulder and says, well, now you have my number. Yep, I say, and proceed with haste out of the room. I can see how he may have thought it was a good idea. It was not. We were standing in line waiting to get into a club. He strolls up and goes, what kind of girl are you? I'm giggling and shake my head. Are you a coke and H kind of girl? Number. Are you a shrooms and weed kind of girl? Number. Are you a black coffee and cigarettes kind of girl? My friend pipes up. She's more of a Fruit Loops and Pepsi kind of girl. Oh, my ex-best friend, when we met my current boyfriend, she always felt she was in competition with me, so we met him, and as we were leaving, we decided to meet up with him later. For a stranger, she came back to mine, got dressed in a tiny black dress, redid to her makeup and hair, and when we returned, every time he said something remotely witty, she did that whole running her fingers through her hair, with a loud, fake laugh, and go ha 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 ha. Oh my god, you are so funny. It was really cringing to watch. I was working at a club. This girl wanted to dance with me. I respectfully declined because security guys aren't allowed to dance with girls and would get fired. All night she kept asking her friends to come up to me to dance with her. I was flattered but still said no. At the end of the night she came up to me drunk and said, I'm really drunk right now. If you don't go home with me tonight, I'm going to drive my car into a freaking tree tonight. That kind of made me cringe. I bought her a taxi ride home. This girl next to me at a pub started chatting to me while I was waiting for the bartender to notice me. I was surprised at how articulate she was, and within a minute or so the conversation was flowing nicely. I wasn't looking for anything after a spat of relationship trouble, so I was just being polite and letting it flow. Then out of nowhere she grabbed my junk. We were talking about bears. I don't know why she went for my genitals at that point. I immediately jumped back against a wall next to us and shouted, what the frick are you doing? She moved slowly towards me. It was only at this point that I could smell the amount of alcohol on her breath. She leaned in close to my ear so that I couldn't really get out the way and went to say something. The next thing out of her mouth was a line thick and lumpy sick. It hit my shoulder and went down my top. Some of it went in my ear. The texture touched my cheek and I could feel it soak my t-shirt. And the smell was the worst bit. It smelled like cheese blanched in bile. I immediately pushed her away and she fell against the counter and threw up on that instead. I ran to the toilet and threw up from the smell. The strangest thing was that I was there to order lunch as it was like 1:30 on a weekday afternoon. You, sir, had more decorum than I would have had. Throws up in a corner. One time, a guy was trying to hit on me and decided the best way to impress me was to carkily declare that he owned a Segway. I was at a restaurant one night and one of the guys in our group thought the waitress was gorgeous. He would try to strike up a conversation with her whenever she came to the table, but she wasn't having any of it. In a last-ditch effort to impress her, he asked for some extra napkins, and after she dropped them at the table, he wrote his number on one and folded it into an approximation of a rose. Then he walked up to her while she was waiting on another table and gave it to her. He interrupted the customer that was in the middle of giving his order. Total dong move. He was heartbroken when she never called him. A Hispanic guy asked me out once at work. Thick accent. Thicker porno stash. I gave him my standard answer. Thank you, but I have a boyfriend. He replied, in his thick accent. That's okay. I'm not jealous. Then he winked. I had to give him points for boldness. That's like a Johnny Bravo line. Yeah, but you look like the kinda girl who could use two. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.